the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
An infinite amount. That's a lot. It's more than, say, 10. It's a lot more than 10. It's an infinite amount. The Hatter was the first to break the silence. "What day of the month is it?" he said, turning to Alice. He had taken his watch out of his pocket, and he was looking at it uneasily, shaking it every now and then, and holding it to his ear. Alice considered a little, and then said, "The 4th. "2 days wrong," sighed the Hatter. "I told you butter wouldn't suit the works," he added, looking angrily at the March Hare. "It was the best butter," the March Hare meekly replied. "Yes, but some crumbs must have got in as well," the Hatter grumbled. "You shouldn't have put it in with the bread knife." The March Hare took the watch and looked at it gloomily. Then he dipped it into his cup of tea and looked at it again. But he could think of nothing better to say than his first remark. "It was the best butter, you know." Alice had been looking over her shoulder with some curiosity. "What a funny watch," she remarked. "It tells the day of the month, and it doesn't tell what o'clock it is." "Why should it?" muttered the Hatter. "Does your watch tell you what year it is?" "Of course not," Alice replied very readily. "But that's because it stays the same all year for such a long time together." "Which is just the case with mine," said the Hatter. Alice felt dreadfully puzzled. The Hatter's remark seemed to her to have no sort of meaning in it, and yet it was certainly English. "I don't quite understand you," she said, as politely as she could. "The dormouse is asleep again," said the Hatter, and he poured a little hot tea upon its nose. "Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder what you're at. Up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky." There you go. Little Alice in Wonderland. This is the Norton Critical Edition. This is the best edition of Alice in Wonderland ever made. Probably even better than, say, a fancy folio edition. And it has the illustrations. Of course, Tenniel illustrations. It's a must. All right, here's a Bukowski poem that has nothing to do with anything. It's long. No one likes it. Suck it up. Sparks. The factory off Santa Fe Avenue was best. We packed heavy lighting fixtures into long, heavy boxes, then flipped the boxes into stacks 6 high. Then the loaders would come by, clear your table, and you'd go for the next 6. 10-hour day, 4 on Saturday. The pay was union, pretty good for unskilled labor, and if you didn't come in with muscles, you got them soon enough. Most of us in white t-shirts and jeans, cigarettes dangling, sneaking beers, management looking the other way. Not many whites. The whites didn't last. Lousy workers, mostly Mexicans and blacks, cool and mean. Now and then, a blade got flashed, or somebody got punched out. Management looking the other way. The few whites who lasted were crazy. The work got done, and the young Mexican girls kept us cheerful and hoping, their eyes flashing messages from the assembly line. I was one of the crazy whites who lasted. I was a good worker, just for the rhythm of it, just for the hell of it. And after 10 hours of heavy labor and exchanging insults, living through skirmishes with those not cool enough to abide, we left, still fresh. We climbed into our old automobiles to go to our places, to drink the half the night, to fight with our women, to return the next morning to punch in, knowing we were suckers, making the rich richer. We swaggered in our white t-shirts and jeans, gliding past the young Mexican girls. We were mean and perfect for what we were. Hung over, we could damn well do the job, but it didn't touch us ever. Those filthy peeling walls, the sounds of drills and cutting blades, the sparks. We were some gang in that deaf ballet. We were magnificent. We gave them better than they asked, yet we gave them nothing. There you go, little Charles Bukowski. Get the morning going right. Today is Thursday, April 9th, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is the Thomas Hunt Show. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share down below. That helps YouTube recommend this video to other people. Checking out the price of Bitcoin on this fine Thursday morning. The price of Bitcoin is flat, down 0.09%, hardly worth talking about, with a last of 7,290, a high of 7,390, and a low of 7,117. That's $1 for 13,721 Satoshis. Check out that V formation overnight. The price of Bitcoin hitting as high as, I can't tell on this chart, there's no indicators, but let's say it hit as high as almost 7,300. Then it fell all the way to 7,117 before recovering right back to almost 7,300. It was a V formation, the sudden crash overnight. Jagged down, quick, back up.
Don't sell Bitcoin.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up almost 2% in the last 3 or 4 hours, with a last of 23,894, tapping on the door of that 24, and a previous close of 433. Interesting numbers. Originally, it was up about 29,000. It fell all the way to 19,000, and now seems to be having a early recovery. We'll see if it lasts. Coronavirus cases worldwide, previously around 1.4 million, around 84,000 dead. Doing the refresh, 1,544,078 infected with the coronavirus worldwide, 90,984 dead. So just looking at it, we've broken 1.5 million infected worldwide. We're about to break 100,000 dead worldwide. Looking at the numbers, it's not quite a 10% death rate, but it's certainly probably about 8%. It's above 5. But this is just the numbers we know. Again, there could be additional deaths not reported, people who got pneumonia, people who died in their houses, but also had the coronavirus. There could be additional cases not reported, people who haven't been tested for the coronavirus. As we know here in the United States, they did a terrible job on testing. They still haven't ramped up testing. We're still waiting to get lots and lots of tests. As you all know, if you can test the coronavirus, you can kind of form a little fence around it. You can go, hey, you have it, you don't have it, you have it, you don't have it, you can segregate all the people that have it, keep them away from the rest of the population, talk about who they hung out with. They even have detectives in Iceland who are working cases on coronavirus, going person to person. You hung out with them. You hung out with them. Stop going out. Stop going outside immediately. Stay away from people. Detectives, man. This is like a case. They're on the case. That's how you beat this thing. Of course, we haven't even started that in the United States yet, so oh well. Stay the fuck home. Why should you stay home? Because this thing spreads better than anything else. So it's not about whether or not it's going to kill you. It's about the hundreds, even thousands, maybe even tens of thousands that you could infect if you go outside. So that's why we're staying home. We're stopping the spread of the virus by staying home. It seems like we're not doing very much, but it's the best plan we have. If you have to go outside, if you're essential, if you go to the grocery store, whatever, wear a fucking mask. We've been saying this for weeks and, gosh, even months now. I don't even know. And finally, the CDC changed its guidance. The WHO changed their guidance. Cloth masks are better than no masks. Of course, we know that because we know about the 1918 pandemic. Here's police officers in Baltimore or Philadelphia or something wearing masks. All of them wearing masks. 1918, 100 years ago. How did we lose this knowledge? I don't know, but here we are on the conceptual global infection curve, the information no one else is telling you because they don't think you can handle it. We're about to go over the first peak. Why do I say the first peak? Because what's going to happen? Well, we're going to go over this peak. We're going to start feeling really good. Then we're going to say, hey, let's go outside again. Let's start shaking hands again. Let's start, going to movie theaters and raw breathing, and let's go to concerts. Let's do all the things we used to do, even some wrestling, share some saliva, all these things. And eventually, the virus is going to get out again. It's going to spread again. It's going to get really big. We're going to have to go back into lockdown, right about at this point here. It's going to be like, oh, back to lockdown. And then it's going to go up and it's going to peak again. And hopefully we're going to do stricter social distancing. We're going to get it faster. Hopefully we're going to have increased capacity at hospitals. They're going to be ready with the drive-through testing. They're going to have seen this before. They're going to be veterans. Some of the nurses and doctors might even have antibodies if they live through it. And we're going to go through another curve. We're going to loosen the social distancing, up again, another curve, up again, another curve. And it's going to keep going like this. And sure, hopefully it gets smaller and smaller. This is a triangle that's getting smaller, right? And at the end, we're going to develop the vaccine, which they said for a long time could take a year to a year and a half. I hope the clock was already running, but now they're saying 18 months would be the fastest vaccine ever made. So let's think more 2 years, 2.5 years of doing this, of everything is fine, let's go outside. Everything is not fine. Everything is fine, let's go outside. Everything is not fine. So, like this video. Thanks for joining us. We're giving you the real information. I know it's shocking. It's a conceptual global infection curve. It's almost like it doesn't need numbers because it's conceptual. I know. We'll work through it. It'll happen. It'll happen whether you like it or not. Coronavirus cases in the United States, previously around 404,000, 13,000 deaths. A lot of cool numbers yesterday. 007. Error code 404. Let's give it the big refresh. 438,476 infected with the coronavirus in the United States. 15,732 dead. So we're getting very close to 500,000 in the United States alone. Looking at the previous numbers, that would give the United States almost 30% or a third of the world's coronavirus cases. Way to go, United States. Everyone, please keep going to beaches, keep spreading this disease, keep shaking hands, please keep standing next to each other in meetings. These are what you can do to keep spreading the coronavirus so that it can kill more people, right? Or we could do the opposite. We could stay home. We could wear gloves. We could wear masks. We could stop shaking hands. We could just stay inside and try to kill the virus. So that's it. Those are our choices. This is the virus. He hates it when you thumbs up and share this show, when you subscribe down below and hit the bell for notifications. Every time you do that, the virus dies a little bit inside. Bitcoin price, next stop, $23,000 as halving approaches. I like that. Bitcoin Cash halving met by 11% price surge. BSV follows with 19%. Okay. Bitcoin price ignores $2.3 trillion Fed cash as pundit warns of suckers rally. We'll have to see. The unemployment numbers today were not impressive. I think it was another 10 million. I think we had maybe 16 million maybe unemployed. It said it was 10% of the entire U.S. population has filed for unemployment in the past couple weeks. Visa teams with new startup fold for Bitcoin rewards on card. This keeps happening. They always say that it's Visa, but it's never quite Visa. Again, the Coinbase card was announced. There was a previous card like this 2 years ago. They do this all the time. And again, you're using the middleman's ground. You're using Visa. So again, you can cancel it. You can't send your money to WikiLeaks. You don't get to choose where your money goes. They could cancel it. They could roll it back, screw over the business. All of this. There's no reason to use Visa. A perfect storm is brewing for the Bitcoin price. Let's see what Kyle Torpy says. Dun, 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 dun. What will happen with Bitcoin next? Oh, he's just quoting that Facebook guy again. Yes, it could go to 1 million or nothing. You're so impressive, Facebook guy. You must have worked really hard on that. All those years at Facebook. It could go to 1 million or it could go to nothing. Let's see. Oh, we're checking out to see if satire is still alive in America. We're giving it a shot, trying to keep satire going. To that effect, I, mad Bitcoins of sound mind and questionable body, announced today that I believe America should use placebo to treat the coronavirus. Placebo has not been tested. Placebo might work. It's worth it to try placebo during this crisis. I just have a good feeling about it. So I hope you'll join me in supporting my quest that they will legalize placebo and let people have it. They've been holding it back long enough. We all know placebo is more effective than many other medicines, and I just feel good about it. Certainly, I'm not a doctor. This isn't to be conceived as medical advice. But if I went to the hospital, I would want to have placebo. Again, that's just my choice. I'm just announcing it here publicly. I'm not intending to sway you or to make it, if you went to the hospital, that you would also demand placebo. But I just think placebo can really help. So let's get that placebo out there. All right, let's start off the news with a nice, fun question from a serious reporter, I guess. I suppose in normal times, they most certainly would have asked the president this. During coronavirus times, a little questionable. And we're actually saying the reporter's a little questionable here. So there you go, a rare siding with a Trumper here.
One of the biggest rating hits of the coronavirus, aside from these briefings, has been a show on Netflix called Tiger King.
Aside from these briefings.
The man who's the star of this is a former zoo owner who's serving a 22-year prison sentence. He's asking you for a pardon, saying he was unfairly convicted. Your son yesterday jokingly said that he was going to advocate for it, and I was wondering if you've seen the show and if you have any thoughts on pardoning Joe Exotic.
Which son? It must be Don.
It was.
I had a feeling it was Don. Is that what he said? I don't know. I know nothing about it. He has 22 years for what? What did he do?
He allegedly hired someone to murder an animal rights activist, but he said that he didn't do that, and he was.
Do you think he didn't do it? Are you on his side?
Well, I'm a reporter.
Are you recommending a pardon?
No, I'm not advocating anything.
As a reporter, you're not allowed to do that. You'd be criticized by these. Would you recommend a pardon?
I'm not weighing in on Tiger
I don't think you would. I don't think you would. Go ahead. You have a question? I'll take a look. Is that Joe Exotic? That's Joe Exotic.
Classic. Great clip. I wonder if the reporter was from OAN News. Like, we really need to kind of find that out at this point, because what a weird question. He framed it really weird with the whole other than this briefing, sir. One of the rating hits is like, really? Do you have to ask the question so far up the man's butt? Like, it's not really a good look for you, reporter guy. But yeah, I guess that's where he wanted to ask his question from. Nice response by Trump. Taking it seriously, I guess. I like how he identifies which son it was. Don also, after allegedly, apparently from his own admission, watching Tiger King in 2 sittings. I think there's at least 7 episodes. I think they're about an hour each. I think that's about 3.5 hour sittings there, estimate. His main takeaway was, wow, you can get a tiger for $2,000? So I don't know if he really caught the same kind of show the rest of us watched. But yeah, I also love it at the end where he finds out that the Tiger King is also Joe Exotic. And again, I don't know if the president knows who Joe Exotic is. Certainly he's been in the news in the past for the crazy zoo and running for president. Heck, I mean, they might have told the president that the guy was running against him. He's Joe Exotic. Or he might just like the name Joe Exotic. Exotic is a beautiful word, sexy, wildlife, different, bizarre, exotic, right? Exotic, and just the way he twists it together at the end. And again, under normal times, back when he was a real estate star, back when he was a reality star, this was much more enjoyable, not having, tens of thousands of dead people in the streets.
I'm
But
not
yeah,
weighing in
we could enjoy this
I'm
kind
not
of
weighing
thing.
in on Tiger
I don't
King.
think you would. I don't think you would. Go ahead. You have a question? I'll take a look. Is that Joe Exotic? That's Joe Exotic.
Is that Joe Exotic? Is that Joe Exotic? Oh, that was a great part. Okay, so that was fun. So we had a nice time at the press conference. Another Allegiant Stadium construction worker has tested positive for coronavirus. Construction is continuing here in Las Vegas. Most construction jobs are probably outdoor. Theoretically, you could work 6 feet apart from someone. Of course, you could wear a mask, but I don't think they did. And this is bad news for the Raiders Stadium in Las Vegas here. If they can't continue construction, they might not be able to have it open in time for the season. So the Raiders might have to play another season in Oakland. That would be a big deal. But then again, they might not even have a season. So who knows? Maybe that'll be delayed. But yes, construction does continue. It does seem risky to me. But then we have to weigh this, right? If you look at a big building like this, some of the supports might not be finished. If they haven't finished the support, the building is unsound, the building could fall over. It's mission critical. We have to finish the supports for this building. Same thing down the street at the Fontainebleau, the Drew, this big empty hotel casino, unfinished since 2018. They're worried that they might not have finished some of the building and that the structures are exposed to weather. That could cause problems. So you do have to finish construction work. I can see why it's still essential. But if workers are getting sick, you have to wonder how much longer this can continue. Acosta asks Trump, can you provide any evidence that mail-in voting is full of fraud? President Trump dodges, says the evidence is being compiled, and he'll be providing that evidence. He also claims, without evidence, that millions of people vote fraudulently. Once again, there is no voter fraud. Find evidence of more than 50 people voter fraud in the last 50 years. I know what you're going to find. You're going to find 30 people voted that were illegal immigrants, and you're going to find 15 people voted twice by mistake, and you're going to find people that were out of state or that moved or something, voting in the wrong state, right? Errors, like statistically uninteresting numbers, like statistically insignificant numbers, right? That's what you're going to find. There's no reason not to do vote by mail except that it makes turnout go up 10%. And if your party is designed on having less people vote because your ideas are less popular, then you're going to lose every time. So this is a pretty big deal. Nice. Zoom just crashed in the middle of my little Zoom hangout that I was hosting for people to join. Oh, well, nice work. They really want me to update it now. I must have gone too far without updating. Reminded that whole states like Oregon vote by mail for more than 20 years and asked for any evidence. Trump says, I'll provide you with some. There's evidence being compiled, which is just a big, obvious lie. So it's just really weak. There's evidence being compiled. There's evidence being compiled. But of course, if you look at the actual evidence, as Daniel Dale, reporter for CNN, says, false. All evidence in the real world suggests that voter fraud is extremely rare. There you go. So until you can get actual evidence, you can't overturn the existing evidence. Trump says he just learned about the gravity of COVID-19 in late January. Even if he found out about it then, why are we just now ordering supplies 3 months later? And that's really the crux of this, and this is more important to me than placebo or hydroxychloroquine or any other kind of fun story that you have, because the real story of this is those missing 4 to 6 weeks. The 70 days where we didn't build any ventilators. The 70 days where we didn't make any masks. All these footwear companies, all these clothing companies are stitching up masks now. They could have been doing that for 70 days. 3M could have been working their factories 24/7 making real N95 masks for hospitals. But they didn't. We closed China. We closed Europe. No one wanted us to. But what did you do next? It seems like they did nothing for 70 days, 4 to 6 weeks, and they let people die. So again, we're going to come back to this later. There's going to be books written about this. We're going to get all their emails. We're going to get all their text messages for the legal case, and they're going to publish them themselves in their books. But yes, we're going to know everything about this 4 to 6 weeks, these 70 missing days, and it's going to matter a lot more than Dallas Buyers Club and hydroxychloroquine, whatever else you got going on. So doctor calls Trump's comments on zinc mystifying after MSNBC host is forced to break in for a fact check. Once again, Dr. Trump is making bizarre medical claims. I suppose this excites you. We've got this whole hydroxychloroquine thing. I was gonna break it down on paper, but I don't know if I have the heart to do it. But we might break it down. It's pretty ridiculous. Like it's really just we should test medicine before we announce it. That's really what it comes down to. If you announce untested medicine, you aren't really helping anything. Now, yes, there's AIDS medicine, there's the Dallas Buyers Club, there's the right to try, there's all of these other things we could put aside for right now. We can say announcing untested medicine, saying that it's a panacea, saying that you would get it even if you didn't have it, saying that it could be a preventative when it's a treatment. So it's not a preventative. It doesn't prevent you from getting the virus if it even works like they think it works. If it works like they think it works, it's a treatment for after you have the disease. So he suggested you take it as a preventative. He suggested you take it to the hospital. It's like all these horrible drug ads. And believe me, I know in Nevada here we have a quite a large elder population. So a lot of the commercials, especially on daytime political news, which is, of course, all that anyone watches these days because it's daytime coronavirus news, we get a ton of drug ads. And they all tell you the side effects, and they tell you how horrible it is, and then they tell you should go ask your doctor about it. And we really should get rid of those drug ads entirely. All they do is they send people to their doctor's office convinced that they've seen the cure on TV. It's not actually science. The cure is an anti-malaria drug, right? It might work. How are we going to know if it works? Well, we should test it, right? If we tested it, we would know if it worked. That's the only way we're really going to know. Like these individual anecdotal studies, like, yes, it's great. Dallas Buyers Club, whatever, watch the movie, get all into it. In that case, that worked. That was just a movie. We can't just assume everything's just a movie. So publisher of hydrochloroquine study, the French study that Trump pointed to, the medical society that published the research says the study does not meet with the society's expected standard. So again, we are just not getting real information. We're not getting science here. And unless you're a doctor, I don't think we should be prescribing random things. If it works, that's great. Let's try it. But if it works, it's going to work in the tests. We're going to have successful tests. We're not going to have tests that don't meet the standards. It seems like a lot of people are cutting corners here and having bad science and just wishful thinking and thinking there won't be side effects. The reason we test things is because there are side effects. Recently, we talked about a study in Sweden yesterday where they stopped using hydroxychloroquine because it blinded a man. Temporary blindness, right? That's why you test things. We don't know what's different about that guy to the other people, but do you really want to go out and give something to thousands of people and have a third of them go blind? Is that acceptable? I mean, you have to test things. You have to do science. There's just no other ground to stand on. I don't understand not testing things. So once again, Trump on why he's promoting unproven drugs as possible coronavirus treatments. And I think the real reason here, as we've talked about, he's a positive news guy. If he wanted to tell you about the progress of the Trump Hotel, he'd never tell you it was going badly. So that's one thing. And that's fine when you're on a real estate project or if you're using The Secret or whatever to promote positive thinking and all that kind of stuff, which seems awfully hippie for this guy. But yeah, that's fine. But that's not fine in the middle of a crisis. In the middle of a crisis like this, we need actual information. We don't need miracle cures and nonsense. But again, he's going to claim he's not a doctor, but a person with common sense. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense. Like a person with common sense would listen to the doctor. They would want the drugs to be tested. I'm certainly not arguing against the testing of the drugs. In fact, I think the testing of the drugs would be more efficient if we didn't announce it first, causing people to stockpile it, causing people to use it randomly without any organized testing apparatus. I think we've actually set the cause back here. That's the real thing. If you're a big supporter of this, like you think it's the miracle cure, this guy has set it back. So I don't know what we're fighting about, but we do seem to be fighting on Twitter. My friend Will was going at it. So go, please.
The only way that we can track these millions of doses of hydroxychloroquine that are being distributed across the country is through the eHealth data system. How systematically is your task force watching this?
Well, I think it's very systematic. Yeah, we're distributing the hydroxy all through the country. It's being distributed in large amounts. We have it coming in now. We were up to 29 million doses. Then we went to 30 million doses. But we have it coming in all throughout the country, and much of it's being distributed. In fact, it'll start going down what we have in our stockpile. And again, it's had, I hope it works. Again, I'm not a doctor, as you possibly have found out. I'm not a doctor, but I'm a person with common sense. And we've had some very good results over the course, including a woman who just reported it 2 days ago. Yes.
Through the eHealth data
one
system?
story.
I think, no, we're looking.
But we have a caller. Thanks for waiting, caller. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Oh, hello. My name is Murky, and I'm calling from where we are right now, which is the cold open of the Not Even a Show, aka NEAS Live. How are you?
Doing good, man. So what's on your mind today about Bitcoin or coronavirus or even hydroxychloroquine if you want?
Well, I'm not much of a Bitcoin guy, but I am going to try a little bit to coin a new catchphrase for all my fans. And I was thinking of something along the lines of, Murky is here, and he's going to steer you on to a good, fun day.
Okay. Anything else?
So basically what I have to do is, definitely something else. I have to get people to say, let's start the live show, because that's what my job is for NEAS Live, and we're in the cold open now. So
what does NAS Live stand for? What does it stand for, man?
Not even the show.
All right, not even the show. So what do you want me to say again?
Say, let's start the live show.
All right, let's start the live show.
Yeah, Bitcoin's a scam.
Oh, Bitcoin's a scam. Yeah, it's such a scam. All right, looks like we had another call during that fun whatever that was. So other caller, you're live on the World Crypto Network. There it is. Hi, how's it going? What's your name? You're live on the World Crypto Network.
Hey, what's up? I am Paul from Moscow. I called you a couple times already.
Hey, Paul. How's it going, man? How you holding up in Moscow?
Yeah, I'm holding up very well. I'm actually bugging out outside of Moscow right now. Not too far, but actually a lot of people are doing the same thing, I'm finding out. But in Moscow, the situation is pretty relaxed. And my brother came back today from the city, and he said that everyone is just chilling out outside and walking with the dogs, walking with the kids. And just drinking and stuff. Everybody is feeling like it's a weekend because it's not cold anymore.
Yes, the weather. Because, I've heard the opposite. I mean, certainly we've heard that, President Putin has really laid it down. They're having a serious quarantine. They're taking this seriously. He went to a hospital recently wearing a full plastic bodysuit with a face mask and a rebreather, and he really looked covered up. And to me, that was a big reminder of, if someone like Putin is taking this seriously, what are the rest of us doing? I mean, that guy's got a mask and everything. What the heck are we doing? So.
Yeah, actually, the thing is, as far as I can tell, and many people noted that from the latest videos coming out from him, they are not coming out from the same location in the Kremlin. They are coming out seemingly from a bunker. There is some ventilation there and some fake windows, looks like, as well as some UV lamps and stuff. So from a high-res picture, people were able to identify these details, and it seems like he's in a bunker. So, yeah, other officials are not. Other officials are still working normally, as well as all parts of the government. I think the courts and not I think, but I know that the courts and the pension funds and stuff like that, everything is working. The only things that are not working are everything except for everything that deals with the government and everything except food and water and medicine.
See, now, I think that's a big deal if Putin is down in a bunker. I say it all the time,
Yeah.
and people hear it all the time, but I try to think of what someone smarter than myself would do. And certainly, I mean, Putin, a big world leader, does all this stuff, good and bad, whatever you want to say. Very clever guy, very organized. I read an article once about his schedule, and his daily schedule is just phenomenal. Like, the guy works like no one else. So if he's down in a bunker, that's scary to me. It's scary that people aren't taking it seriously in Moscow, but then I know what they're saying about that warmth. A friend of mine said the same thing in Germany. I was there around this time or a month or so, last year, and yeah, they go nuts. Practically naked women everywhere, everyone in the park, everyone having a great time. Just the sun ignites these Germans. So I can imagine about the same for the Russians, but I wouldn't take any chances in these times, man. I mean, I wouldn't take any chances. So.
Yeah, the winter is quite harsh here. Actually, this winter it wasn't that harsh. There was barely any snow. This winter was very unusual. We had a couple winters like that a few years ago, but last winter was fine. So something is going on with the weather. One winter it seems that the winter is actually cooler, and the weather is cooling down, and the next winter it's warmer, so I can't really tell which way it's going. But anyway, in terms of the virus, I don't think people are taking it very seriously. Some people are just going outside to the villages. The one thing that is not banned is car travel, personal car travel as well as taxis.
Huh.
So people can leave cities and regions.
Again, we're seeing kind of a socioeconomic divide there. If you don't have a private car, if you can't afford a taxi, certainly the subway and the buses are probably closed. I think it would be difficult to move around. Just once again, the advantages of having little wealth, So.
Yeah, actually, the buses and the metro are not closed, surprisingly, but there are no people on them.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty scary. I'd heard a lot of reports about bus drivers getting sick, even though they're keeping the front of the bus closed off. They're not doing the tickets or taking $5 or whatever they do normally. But still, they're sharing the same air in that bus tube with potentially sick people. And hopefully everyone, especially the sick, are wearing masks to try to protect others. But that's not always the case. And masks aren't even evenly distributed yet. So.
Yeah. So how is the situation going on your end?
Well,
how are people reacting there? Because here there are not too many people wearing masks. Like I would say 5% tops.
It's tough for me to say. I haven't been out very much, obviously. But in Nevada here, we had previously, they'd closed all non-essential businesses. But people were still, pretty much going out doing their daily lives. Recently, we had a shelter-at-home order. So now people are officially supposed to stay home. I don't know that we have, patrols of police out on the street or anything enforcing it. It's kind of voluntary, although I imagine they'd give you trouble if you were out and about. But no, I don't think people here are wearing masks. We saw the pictures from the election in Wisconsin yesterday. A lot of people had masks, but I would say it's more like 30%, like 3 in 10. So it's not really reaching here. We did get the order just a couple days ago about the cloth masks, whereas previously it was just, weirdos like me and Balaji and these other people saying that, hey, maybe masks will work. Maybe it works really well in Asia. We're not different from them at all. Yeah, that hit. They announced it, but it still hasn't gotten to everyone yet. So we'll have to see. But yeah, we're just staying inside. We went down to the casinos on the day before they put down the shelter order, legally, and did a little filming, and it is just empty down there. There's all these pedestrian sidewalks that are usually just full of people, and they're drinking and they're having fun. And no one's there at all. Everything's closed. All the hotels are empty. It's very surreal. But yeah, like it says in the chat, they're like, but the president wants us to go back to work, and the economy people want us to go back to work, and everyone's worried about the economy, and they're not worried about it in the way that I'm worried about it, like the food supply and having more food. They're worried about it in, I don't know, consumer goods and BMWs and new laptops and new tablets. Like, we just need to get back to spending, so I think a lot of people think. So.
Yeah. So, I also wanted to ask you, when is the next Bitcoin group show, and when are you going to invite Tone Vays, because he used to be a regular visitor, but not anymore, as it seems.
The next show is tomorrow. I haven't really written anything or scheduled anybody. One of the problems with these shows, especially just in general, I'm doing this daily show, so I get up and I do that. And then, I take some time off, a little tired after, 2-3 hours of like straight talking and everything. So it is really hard for me to also schedule people on the group. So generally I try to get 2 or 3 guys who can do it every week and just stick with those guys. But it would be fun to have Tone as a guest again. It's been a long time. Yeah. And I think he's probably sheltering at home too. So he's ready to do some more shows. A lot of times with like Tone and Jimmy and even Andreas way back in the day, they just got to traveling and going to so many conferences and conventions and speeches and there's workshops and all these things that they just weren't available, Friday at 1:00. And I kind of have to, I got to stick it on Friday because at least for me, if we ever screw up and we miss Friday, we're always like, oh, we'll do it on Saturday. And then we miss Saturday. Oh, we'll do it on Sunday. We miss Sunday. And by the time it's Monday, it's a new week and the news is rolling again and you can't really recap it. So Friday is just this magical time for the weekly recap. And it's not great on everybody's schedule. So, but yeah, we'll definitely try to do it tomorrow, and we'll try to get Tone on there again soon.
Yeah, I just really love to see the old school people, the people that you used to have like 2-3 years ago, Gabriel Divine, Tone Vays, and whatever other people. And yeah, I just love to see those kind of shows. They're really interesting and informative. It's really a pity that not too many people are watching them.
Well, we did them really steadily for a long time, and that was really good. I think a lot of people relied on it every week on Friday, and then as it was, I was traveling myself, and we were just really busy, and we lost the focus of doing it every week. So I think that brought the numbers down a lot. Also, both with that show and this show, I think we're a lot more like public broadcasting. We're a lot more like news and information, but not really sensationalist, not really like this information will make you $50,000 in the next 10 minutes. Like we don't make video titles like that. And a lot of people, they like those, and they want to click on them and they want to watch them and whatever. And, that's fine for those people. And we make our content kind of, for our boring people. So we just keep working at it. But eventually, hopefully we'll find a lot more people that like boring facts and not, sensationalist, exciting stories. So we'll just keep plugging away.
The first time I learned about Bitcoin was in 2015 in the June. And I was in Thailand and I had nothing with me except my phone. I actually lost everything, my passport and my credit card and everything. And so I only had my phone, and somebody told me about my Bitcoin. And I was like, well, that sounds crazy interesting. Like, I was into anarchism before that. And the person that I met thought that I would be interested in that because I was an anarchist and he was too. And so he told me about it, and I was like, this is a really good idea. And I started Googling, and I found your channel, like one of the first channels that I subscribed to, and I started watching your shows, and it was really, really helpful. So yeah, thank you, man.
Well, thanks so much, man. And yeah, I agree. I felt the same thing about Bitcoin. When I first heard about it, I thought it was cool. I didn't know if it was the one or anything, so I rejected it like a lot of people, and I came back a few years later, and yeah, I felt the same way you did. The more I read about it, the more exciting it got, the more I thought of ways that maybe I could break it or maybe I could copy it, because you think about like kind of like robbing a bank. You just, in your mind, you're like, how would I do that, And yeah, I couldn't find any way to break it. I'd read other people, how they thought they could break it, and they couldn't break it either. And, the more information you get, the more you're like, yeah, this is a really interesting thing. I think it's interesting because, like, when I read about it years ago, and there's this big separation between people of like knowing anything at all about Bitcoin and like knowing nothing, and so it slowly went that way. And then now so many people know about it the price is 7,000. You know, it's pretty crazy seeing it go from 100 or 300 all the way up to now. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, indeed. And also, I wanted to say that, goddamn, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, so yeah, have a nice day, whatever it is, morning there in where you're at. Yeah, we have evening right now, so have a good morning and good day, and yeah, see you next time.
All right, thanks so much, Paul. Give us a call anytime, and stay safe, man. Keep clean.
Yeah, you and take care.
All right, we'll talk to you again soon, man. All right, and looked like somebody else called while he was online. Oh, there she is, calling back. Hello. Oh, gotta push the buttons. Hello, you're live on the. Oh, gotta turn your radio down. Hi, you're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Thomas. Super nice to talk with you. This is Nate. I'm calling from Oregon, and I've been watching you for years. Much like your last caller, keeping up with Bitcoin news and your readings. Appreciate you very much. I just wanted to just give a couple thoughts, and then I'll hop off here. When talking about coronavirus and the numbers and the daily numbers, I think it's really important to point out the number of negative tests that came in the last 24 hours as well. Because the death rate can't be calculated by the number of people that die to the number of people that are confirmed infections, right? That's not the true number. You've got to compare to the total number of infections. So, for instance, in Oregon, we have, under 2,000 cases, but we've done 22,000 tests. So, that makes a difference, the number of negative results that came back in 24 hours, and not doing the death rate against the number of confirmed cases, because you can only get tested if you're sick. So if you're not sick, you can't get tested, and so that doesn't factor into the equation. So it's not, that makes the death rate look like, 2% rather than 0.6%. So, which is closer if you were to guesstimate, because you can't even tell. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I agree with you. Are there any websites that are doing this kind of results? Because like right now we mainly have that Worldometers website. And like you're saying, I agree. Right. It has the total cases. It has the deaths. I mean, I just look at the two numbers and I start making comparisons in my mind, whether they're accurate or not. Like the mind just does that, So yeah, having the other number right there would be good too. Yeah.
Exactly. You know what? There definitely are. I know that I do one that's my local Oregon one. I'll find a couple links to get those over to you, because that's a really important number when you're talking about the number of new infections, because only people that are already sick can get tested. So 80% of people, by the CDC's own numbers, will have mild to no symptoms. And those people are unable to get tested. All right. So it's important that it skews the death rate by quite a bit. And I think that it makes it sound, this is a scary situation, no doubt, but it makes it sound really scary when you're just comparing against the confirmed cases, right? Oh, and look here on Worldometer, I'm looking right now. And so if you scroll down, look at active cases and look at the mild conditions. There we go. Look at that. So 1 million infected patients over the planet, and or 1.1 million, and in mild conditions is 1.06 million. So that right there is an interesting number as well, right? In mild condition. So I feel like it's just important to present the number that way, and to talk about that. And it would be really awesome if in the media, when they talked about these overnight numbers, if they would quantify that with, well, we have this many negative tests as well. And remember that 80% of people that get this can't even get tested. I think that would be a really nice way to preface, or at least quantify those numbers, help people understand what's going on there.
Definitely, I agree with that. And I also think we just need to do so much more testing, especially in the United States. If we look at South Korea, the reason they had such success is because they had testing and because they tracked it down like a detective. And I know we missed that point, that point's gone. But we still, if we want to contain this thing, if we want to say, okay, there's just an outbreak in Buffalo, or there's just an outbreak in Dallas, we're going to need testing to know that. And yeah, I think there's going to be tons of new developments. We already saw that little machine that does the instant testing. I think if they make one of those that does, 20 at a time or something, we might be getting somewhere. I think that private companies in general, we're going to see a lot of products. We're going to see a lot of get your home COVID testing kit and test yourself daily. And I mean, I just think, I don't know where we're going, but I think we're going to a really weird virusy world.
People are much more aware of this than they ever were, right? I mean, in our lifetime, because we just haven't experienced this sort of global flare. We've experienced small ones in other places, but just nothing that's affected everybody like this.
And I think also what you're saying with the numbers that as it's our first our first big one of these, at least, worldwide, US, we don't really know the right numbers yet. So once we do know, like you're saying, the mild condition number and the tested, infected, mild, these numbers, the next time we have the breakouts, I think people will go right towards these numbers, and we'll start looking at the right things. And this will help too, because there's also a hysteria. You just don't know what numbers to look at. You don't know where to go. The numbers keep getting bigger. Like for a long time, I was really focused on how fast it was doubling. And I still think that's really important, but I've kind of lost track of it as it become such a massive worldwide United States problem. But yeah, the doubling factors I think is really important as well. So.
Well, let me address that real quick. I'm a data analyst, and that's why this stuff is really interesting to me. And I'm also very interested in this. I've been following it since it started in China, because I was about to do some traveling, and we almost called off our trip because of it. Didn't end up doing it. So when those numbers are doubling, this is like, let's say that you were someplace that didn't have any coffee at all. And then all of a sudden somebody brought over a boat of coffee. The number of people drinking coffee would double, quadruple, triple every single day, because all of a sudden it was available. The tests weren't available. And so, of course, those numbers are going to go through the roof. It's highly contagious. 80% of the people that get it will never feel any symptoms. And then all of a sudden you get a big box of tests and you start testing. Well, everybody's positive. The sick people that you're testing, because you're only testing sick people. You're not testing those. But sure. So, of course, every one of those tests is going to be a positive result, because you're testing. Well, not really. When you look at, we just talked about how many were negative results that they've been doing. But these are sick people that they're testing. But so sure, those numbers are going to skyrocket, but that doesn't mean that 10,000 people got it yesterday. Way more than that probably got it yesterday. But that means that they had 10,000 positive tests yesterday. And how many negative tests did they have? Because those numbers are going up pretty fast as well. Here where I'm at in Oregon, actually, they're laying off nurses at the hospitals right now. My wife is a nurse, and they're laying off nurses, because their ICUs are empty. They're like the hospitals are empty because there's no elective surgeries going on.
Sure.
So the hospitals are more empty too. But when you look at, I sent you that link earlier, and it'd be cool if you showed that at some point today, because that's a really interesting link, because it shows you the real-time number of hospital beds, the real-time number of ICU beds, the real-time number of people who need ventilation and how many ventilators are left. And like where we're looking, even when peak is projected, we'll be well under our level, even at projected peak.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Oregon numbers right now. It does look really low. It looks like they've kind of flattened the curve. I mean, there's a projection. So like all things, it's like a plus or minus 15% or whatever. So it could be 15% worse. It could be 15% better. So looking at that, there could be an issue at the top of the worst, but that would be the worst.
Oh, for sure. Well, and also, that site is based off of that premise that you would stay sheltered in place, or at least low social contact, until the end of May, I believe. So if we jump into kissing our neighbors or whatever, then that would progress really quickly. It would look way different.
Well, there's that article yesterday from Dr. Fauci, and he was talking about the future, and he was like, yeah, handshaking's pretty much out. I don't think we're going to go back to handshaking. It's just too much of a way to spread diseases. Like hugging people hello, that's pretty much out. Like kissing people hello's out. So society is changing. It's pretty weird. So.
Yeah, well, people are taking it seriously. Finally, maybe. I also think that there's studies backing up that too much cleanliness actually makes you weaker immune system. And what actually does keep the 80% of people from getting coronavirus is not some genetic predisposition, it's immune system. That's why the people that get it are immunocompromised or old, pre-existing conditions. If you die, it's probably because you had heart disease or diabetes, or heart disease or diabetes, right? So, a strong immune system and being healthy is another important part of that equation, I believe.
Definitely. I'd heard that about the antibacterial soap, that it was actually wiping the bacteria off of your hands, and then your hands didn't have that good bacteria anymore. It's so complicated, all this stuff. Because if you think about like the stomach's full of all this good bacteria and a good acid or whatever that breaks down your food. And it's like, but if you get too much, it's bad. But if you have too little, it's bad. I mean, the whole Greek golden mean just comes back into a lot of things. You just want moderation in everything, because it's just too hard to figure anything else out. So, but people love their extremes. They love to eat all meat, or they love to eat no meat, or they love to eat only bat, or I don't know. People in their choices.
And they like to choose the team and fight and root for that team to the death. And I do think that's funny, and I think you're seeing that a lot in the politicizing of the current situation as well. Like, let's not listen to science or reason. Let's just unload on either Trump or on the Democrats or on, the libtards or whatever. It's like, it is crazy when this is really the time of unity. And I hope that that's the message that people take away from this, that we're all connected and we're all truly, your neighbor's immune system actually literally affects you and your family.
Well, that's where it gets political really fast, because obviously then I want single payer health care, and I want everyone to have health care, and I want, sick leave for everybody.
I'm with you there, buddy.
Kid at McDonald's can't take a day off, he gets everybody that eats there sick. That's a terrible trade-off. Like, let the kid have a day off, Maybe, sometimes he goofs off, sometimes he's not sick, but still, like, the business will go on, like.
I'm so with you there. And let me make one more just quick point, and then I'll hop off to give you the chance and other viewers and callers, whatever. With the hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine in South Korea is actually another reason that they did so well, because that's one of their treatments. And I just wanted to make just a couple quick points. I know that that French study that was too small, so it didn't meet their standards, so they pulled it. But there's studies out of China, there's studies out of Korea. There's a huge trial of over 100,000 people happening in New York right now as we speak. And Yale Hospital, on their treatment sheet, I just got sent this 2 days ago, their treatment sheet in Yale Hospital for COVID is hydroxychloroquine. That's what they're treating with right now. If you went to Yale University's hospital, with COVID, they would treat you with it. So it's being politicized. It is effective. Like, they're using it all over the place. Now, the only thing is that it hasn't gone through the last clinical trials that our FDA would require. But it is, and also in zinc, this new thing with zinc. So this was known months ago, that zinc in the cell, if you can get zinc inside of the cell, it can't perform mitosis, and it will prevent, or not mitosis. If you can get it in the mitochondria, that's it. Then it will prevent it from replicating the virus. But getting zinc inside the cell, you can't do that just by taking zinc supplements. It has to be intercellular.
I was going to say, because obviously we'd all just go get this zinc, right? We put it in our smoothies or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
totally.
Done.
Totally, right?
Right?
But that's not the thing, though, right? It's got to get into the cell, intercellular. And that's where the hydroxychloroquine actually comes in. That's how that works, and gets it through the cell wall and gets the zinc into the cell. So the thing is that, yes, zinc is part of the answer here, and hydroxychloroquine is zinc. It gets zinc into your cell, intercellular. So there's a politicizing of just making Trump sound like an idiot and attacking him, but there's actually, on the other side, there's really effective treatments that are getting lambasted and not getting the fair attention they deserve. I'm not saying that Trump should be saying, go take hydroxychloroquine or eat pond cleaner. I think that's a terrible move. But I do think that it would be okay to say, we are testing these. We have treatments that are working for some people. We're trying to figure out if they're safe or not. but they're available and there is hope. Like, I think that's the message that gets distorted by just the Trump hate. And I consider myself I consider myself maybe independent, left-leaning. I try to judge every issue by its merit. I try not to choose a camp. But I think that he's being lambasted, and I think that we're taking attention off of an important treatment that is effective. It's shown to be effective. Is there side effects for some people? Absolutely. Do we need to see what's happening? Yes. But can your doctor prescribe it? Absolutely, they can. And are they prescribing it in the United States today? Yes, they are, as standard treatment. So that's just a lot. And all of this stuff is available. You could Google any of this stuff. I've been doing that just to kind of see. I can't post links here, but MedCram on a YouTube channel. This guy's a doctor that breaks down studies. He's been talking about this for months. So I would check him out. And Thomas, I love you, man. I love your show. Thanks so much for letting me talk and chat.
Thanks so much, man. No, I think you've got some
reading to us.
You've got some good information there on the hydroxychloroquine and the zinc. I was interested to hear that. And again, yeah, I don't want to be just against it, because Trump is for it. I'm not saying that. And yeah, I definitely think it's gotten twisted in there. And it's really interesting because I was pretty much arguing with my friend Will about this on Twitter. And I'm pretty much coming down, we should test medicine. It's pretty simple for me.
Right.
I'm not a doctor.
Right.
And again, I've seen Dallas Buyers Club, right? I know that, with the AIDS medicines, with like cancer medicines, with like, if you have some weird disease, you want to try some crazy medicine. I'm pretty much there. I'm like with the libertarians where it's like your body, you want to try the crazy medicine. We warn you, we give you a bunch of forms, you can't sue anybody, like that kind of thing. That's pretty much okay. Right. I saw that movie, it helped some people, whatever. AIDS is horrible. But with this thing, it seems to me more like if I was president, I would be excited in my private meetings and I would be telling everybody in the private meeting how great this is. And I would be calling up like science people and saying, hey, can we test this faster? And I'll get you some more money. And I'll get you some more, whatever you need a lab or whatever, privately.
Right.
And sure, it might leak. Like there might be people, the president's calling every hospital, talking to scientists about drugs. That might leak, right? But it wouldn't be because I go out and announce it. Because I just think if you announce something like this, you cause shortages. That makes it harder to test. That makes it harder for people to get it. It gives it to this whole restrictive, like the rich people bought it, or the planning people bought it. And whereas I want everybody to get it if it works. I mean, my goal is, let's get it out to the most number of people. And I just think the most efficient way to do that is not announcing it. And it's not like he even just announced it once and then went back on it. He's like, oh, whoopsie, I mentioned the magical cure and, I screwed up a lot of things because the very next day, I'm sure they told him, they're like, Mr. President, since you announced that, like people are hoarding this, people are buying it, people are drinking aquarium cleaner, they're getting sick and dying. Like maybe this wasn't a good idea. And the reaction, and again, this guy's a very unique guy. The reaction is to go out and do it 5 or 10 more times. The reaction is to double down and say that he would request it as a preventative. Like certainly, like we have to put things in categories. There's vaccines, there's treatments. Vaccines are preventative. It prevents people from getting treatment. You give it to people afterwards. So yes, this might be a treatment, but it's certainly not a vaccine. Thomas. I mean, it's just we've blown through so many walls because of this guy. So
it actually is a preventative.
Could it be?
Is a preventative, and actually,
I'm open to this.
It is. Well, no, check it out because it's a preventative for malaria. If you go to which is a virus, if you go to Africa, they tell you to take hydroxychloroquine for a week before you go to get that zinc inside of your cells, and then the virus can't replicate. So it's more than a treatment. It actually is a preventative. It's a malarial preventative, which is a viral preventative. So, and I'm not saying that those are good for your body, and I'm not saying that it's proven to prevent COVID yet, but I'm saying that it's likely. And if the way that it works is getting zinc into the cell and preventing the virus from replicating, then having zinc already in your cell will prevent the virus from replicating. I mean, that seems to make sense. That seems to be the thought there. So it needs to be tested. And I agree with you 100%. He shouldn't be out there giving doctor advice, especially with the size of the target he has on his back. Of course, everybody's going to jump on anything the guy says because that's the media tenor right now, right?
It's just a big question of responsibility. You just can't yell fire in a crowded theater, and
No.
I'm all for free speech,
yeah.
but like I see how that hurts other people. And, certainly, I mean, this isn't a big fancy show. If I tell everyone to drink Pepsi instead of Coke, no one's going to stop drinking Coke. But he's a big fancy president. A lot of people listen to him. We've had a lot of problems in the past about people joking about this happening or joking about that happening, and then some idiot goes out and does it. So you just have to communicate differently at that level. And obviously he's never had any kind of controls on his communications and refuses them even now. So we're going to see what's happened. I mean, the Asian American blowback thing. And then of course this drug is being hoarded and used improperly, and maybe it's great. But yeah, somehow he's twisted his brand in there and he's kind of ruined any potential for it. But still, if the studies come out, if the doctors come out, I mean, I'm going to be all for it. I want to kill the virus.
Right.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm going to say I'm wrong too. Whatever. So, but.
Oh, of course. Yeah, we're all learning, and that's actually, science isn't one thing. Science is a method of looking at the world, and so and that changes as you learn new things. So yeah, of course, we're going to learn a bunch. But really, to summarize, it was, do you want me to start drinking Pepsi?
I like Pepsi better than Coke, but I don't think you should start jumping off any buildings yet or anything. So.
Yeah, I was just kidding. But I do appreciate you, and I appreciate your show, and thanks so much. I'm gonna hop off and turn back my sound on and hop back in the chat.
Thanks so much, Nate, for the call, and give us a call anytime.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later, brother. Bye now.
All right. And you can call us now if you'd like at 1-518-600-1949. That's at 001 internationally, or on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. Try to keep the phone calls going if you guys are around, you want to chat. We have about 50 viewers watching now. Thanks to everybody for joining us. You probably found us through a YouTube browse function where it recommends cool videos. Maybe it recommends live videos because this is a live video. But it'd be a great idea to give us a thumbs up and go ahead and subscribe down below if you haven't already. Hit that bell for notifications. It tells you when we're on. Same thing for other YouTube shows. Support your other YouTube shows. Thumbs up them, even when they aren't asking, and they'll be all surprised. They'll be like, how'd I get so many thumbs up? And it'll be because of you. So it's funny. I look at the stats on this show. We seem to have about 300 to 500 viewers and about 30 people that give us thumbs up. So if we had more like 50 people giving us thumbs up, I think we'd get more 500 to 700 viewers. But it doesn't really matter. It's also kind of nice to have a small chat like this where people can call in and people can be in the chat, and it's not all out of control yet. But we did get to say open up the morning show for the Not Another Show or something, so that was fun, I guess. Idiots. Again, yes, there's no evidence of voter fraud. Bring me evidence of voter fraud. I agree with Miguel Delaney. He says Trump basically conducts these press conferences like it's a roast on Comedy Central. It does have kind of a game show feeling to it. Like this guy says, 13,000 Americans have died, and some asshole reporter just asked President Trump if he would pardon Joe Exotic. Yeah, the reporter was a bit out of position there. Normally, a kind of a joke story like this, kind of a popular news story, certainly would get asked at a normal press conference. Kind of different coronavirus press conference, kind of a different scene. I don't know. I still would like to know if that guy's from OAN. Well, Governor Newsom is working with a company that can sterilize 80,000 masks a day. Trump is telling you to take zinc. And that was weird to hear Trump advising on zinc, but then to hear our caller talking about zinc, it makes sense. And the first thing he said, the very first thing that Nate said was that you can't just take the supplement. Obviously, we all want the easy way. If we could make our cells into little fortresses with zinc inside, we would take the supplement. But he's saying it's much more complicated. So the president, I don't want to say it, but maybe he doesn't grasp that nuance. Nuance is important. Like details make the story, in my opinion. And in science, it's doubly so. It's different than English. But yeah, he didn't really catch that part. It's interesting. I like this. Chris Hayes, he says, the most cynical interpretation of all this, was he looking at me? One I can't believe myself to accept is that they rolled out the model showing 100,000 deaths after they knew it would be less than that, so they could anchor everyone to that number and take a victory lap when only tens of thousands died. I don't know if it's that cynical. I think it's kind of standard operating procedure. Certainly, we've all seen that episode of Next Generation where Scotty explains to Geordi that he always multiplies his repair estimates by a factor of 8. This way, he gets the reputation of being a miracle worker. I don't know. Star Trek has an answer for everything, right? Oh, why does Trump object to voting by mail? Because it would cause levels of voting that if you ever agreed to it, you'd never have a Republican elected again. Robert Reich says it's the first honest sentence that he's ever uttered. When more people vote, Republicans lose. It's just that simple. And again, I wish we were just having a battle of ideas. And I think that's probably, if we talk honestly, that's probably what you guys want too. But we're not going to have a battle of ideas. We're going to have a battle of who's allowed to vote. Because if too many people are allowed to vote, it ruins one of the parties. So not a good look. It's amazing that it's lasted this long, this kind of delusion over if we're having a battle of ideas or if we're having a battle over who can vote. It's different things. Trump voted a normal mail-in ballot sent to Mar-a-Lago, not an absentee ballot sent to the White House. Indeed, someone would have had to deliver it from Mar-a-Lago to the White House for him to vote it, which would be ballot harvesting. That's right. We have our first evidence of voter fraud, and it comes from the White House. The caller came from inside the house. So, sigh. Not a good look. Again, yes, there's no evidence. There's no evidence. Bitcoin and the tyranny of time scarcity. Interesting. He says, Bitcoin is simply a tool for saving time. It stores the value created from our time spent serving one another, reduces the time needed to establish trustful coordination, and it protects our mutually generated time savings from confiscation. Interesting. Sad news in Las Vegas. The golf courses must close, according to Governor Sisolak. Sorry, OJ. Las Vegas locally jokes. Funny stuff. Biden requests that Joe Biden select Elizabeth Warren as his running mate. He says that Warren cares deeply about average working people and the poor. Warren understands how Wall Street has gamed the system. Warren knows how to fix the system, and Warren will get young people and progressives to the polls. I agree with this. This would be great. It would shore up people. It would give us a female vice president, potentially. Maybe even someday female president. This would be great, but we all know it's not going to happen. Joe Biden almost announced on the eve of his original announcement who his vice president is going to be. So I can go ahead and spoil it to you because you know the future here. His vice president is going to be Abrams, Sherry Abrams, the loser of the Georgia governor race, which again puts you in the right frame. We talked before in the Democratic debates, as much as I support pretty much all their ideas, you look around and it's a field of losers. There's no one that just comes off and you're like, that guy wins. You know, that like the classic line from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. How do you know he's a king? Because he ain't got any shit on him, right? The king is the one that's Teflon. The king is the one that ain't got shit on him. The king is not weak. And yeah, we didn't see any kings. So yeah, it's going to be Stacey Abrams out of Georgia. She's an African-American woman. She's a loser. She lost the Georgia governor's race after they rigged it against her, which again, sure, it's sad to lose a rigged race. But if you don't complain enough, if you don't cause a big enough stink, it'll just go. And yeah, that's who he's going to pick. They're dancing with Kamala Harris as well. She's also very unpopular, pretty much a police officer. The description on Saturday Night Live of her was really brutal, that Kamala Harris is the aunt that gives you weed and then busts you for it. Seems about right. But yes, Warren would be a great pick, and there's no way it's going to happen. The same with Bernie. Bernie is not going to be vice president. Let's all put that to the side. Colleges with empty campuses face an uncertain financial future. That's right, more and more James D'Angelo's excellent plan about escape pods where we could play basketball, drink coffee, go to classes, hang out in cafeterias, and basically never leave these college campuses. You just fence them off. You just put gates up and you have these little escape pods where people can live virus-free. These escape pods wouldn't go through that cycle that we're going to go through, where we get the virus down, we reopen, the virus goes back up. We get the virus down, we reopen, it goes back up. If you're in one of these college campuses, you just stay closed. And as these colleges seemingly go out of business, more and more chance for a private individual or industry, such as the NBA, to buy a couple of colleges and put James's plan into place. Makes sense. What are we going to do with all these empty buildings, with all these empty campuses? We had a fun chat with everybody about old Sega games on sale on the Switch. I know I went ahead and got a few. They were reasonably priced. The Switch is nice and portable. I think it's a good platform. Should be with us a few more years. And yeah, I got Sonic 1 and 2, Space Harrier, Outrun, Shinobi. They got me on Night Trap for like $3. You know, when the games get down to $3, it's hard not to just pull the trigger when they're on sale. Bitcoin Dude says he prefers the ROMs, and he's got them all. Doesn't have a good Galaga, though. He's got to get a good Galaga. And I tell him, yeah, I like the old ROMs and everything, but the Switch, it's just a magical Game Boy that plays on the TV. It's got great controls, well emulated, and of course it has the new Zelda. This guy says you can hear the 16-bit MIDI right now. He suggests Wonder Boy, Teddy Boy, what else? Go, oh, what the favorite, he doesn't say. But Sonic, lots of cool, fun Sega games on the Switch. Keep you distracted, play some video games. China, the Wuhans, yes, until daily new coronavirus cases gradually decrease to zero, only then will we be able to prevent a new outbreak by contact tracing, testing, and isolation of patients. So yes, we're going to learn from this. We're going to do it again, and we're going to do it better the next time. That's what they used to say on PTI. I love that show. It has been on in weeks because there are no sports anymore. But yeah, at the end of the show, he says, we'll try to do it better the next time. I think that's one of the best things you can try. I subscribed to some weird channel on my TV called Shout, and I got access to Johnny Carson. After 50 years, they're only giving me access to 31 episodes, and they're all Animal Week. So it was pretty weird. The guy makes so much content, and then they only sell just a little bit of it. They also had looked like Mystery Science Theater and some other old shows on Shout. It's another one of those like Tubi or Pluto or whatever where you can subscribe on your smart TV. And the goal, of course, like everything else, is they're going to play you ads. And they're going to track what you watch, I'm sure. The CDC quietly deletes hydrochloroquine guidance as study hype by Trump comes into question. We talked a lot about this morning. This was a very strange thing where the CDC had published guidance on dosage for a test that had not been approved. So again, we're just kind of doing things out of order here. Sure, I guess doctors are using it. Maybe they do need dosage information. But putting an untested drug with dosage information on the CDC website seems like a little far. Seems like a little early. Certainly, this information could be out there. I'm sure doctors can go to some kind of medical forum and get the dosage information or the suggested dosage information. It's not really taking it away from anyone. Big news as another 6.6 million file for unemployment. 10% of the U.S. labor force is now out of work. And let's go ahead and put a copy and paste right there. 10% of the U.S. labor force has also lost their health care, unless they got the COBRA thing, unless they can afford to keep paying. And I can tell you I sure couldn't when I was unemployed. You do not get a lot of money, and COBRA is expensive. Certainly, I guess if you had health conditions, if you had a baby, if you had kids, you definitely have to do it somehow. I don't know how, but yeah, it's expensive. Kamala Harris is calling for a freeze on credit card interest fees and penalties. Bills don't just stop because we're in the middle of a pandemic. That would be nice, but again, they're going so slow. Nothing seems to be happening. Just truly phenomenal unemployment numbers. The graph right here, you can see it's not even a graph anymore. Such outliers. You basically have to split the graph into pre-coronavirus and period of coronavirus. But yes, another 6.6 million Americans filed for unemployment, but the stock market is still up. Very strange. It's very strange. More limits on voters. Republicans do not want a real democracy. This is not a good look. This kind of defeats the whole Athenian democracy, the laboratory of ideas, this debate where the ideas are tried and the results are looked at, and then we decide whether we're going to do that same thing again, if we're going to do something different. Apparently it's just about reducing the limits and making less people vote. It's not a good thing. This was funny, but sad. This has been another one where, I don't know, I guess it's different when you're a computer geek and all these kind of things to see this coming, but our society just can't plan for shit. I remember being in the computer labs. Oh, I'm going to age myself again. It's probably 20 years ago. I was in the computer labs, and they're just barely retiring COBOL, right? They're teaching just a little bit about it. COBOL programs, fascinating fact, pretty much the only fact I have about COBOL, other than it's all caps like Unix, is that you had to have tab separated code because the code was designed to match the punch cards, and the punch cards were that way. So it was a very strange language. You have to have tab separated codes in little rows because that's how the punch cards were read. That's obviously a bad sign. Why are we still talking about COBOL? Well, the same thing that happened at my little university, not a big deal in old Sacramento, they were still running their mainframes on COBOL, even then, 20 years ago. And they were talking about this same exact thing, how they didn't have any COBOL programmers, and they didn't know how long they were going to be able to do this. And they'd even built like a copy of the database or a copy of the thing on modern hardware. And it was synchronizing, it was synchronizing every night or whatever. It would make a copy of itself. And even then they're like, we should keep the old hardware. We should keep the old database. Like, they were just, these administrators had become romantically involved with the old technology. And yes, there's definitely risks with new technology, and some hotshot vendor is going to come in and promise you everything and it never works out. But you can't just stick with the old mainframes forever, can you? Well, 20 years later, it turns out you can. The U.S. government is still running COBOL servers, especially for the unemployment department. So as we see with this 6.6 million spike, which would wreck anything. I mean, obviously this is practically wrecked Zoom. Not that they were a gre't company or anything, but they've overloaded. Systems are overloaded. They're not designed for this. But yeah, they're in desperate need for programmers for COBOL. So, we just can't plan anything. I don't know why we can't plan things. But yeah, if you're a COBOL player, hit it. This is your big chance. I might read this whole story. Let me know in the chats. Do you hate baseball? Actually, that might not help. You might want to go the other way. Say that you love baseball. Maybe I won't do it. But yes, this is a pretty interesting story about Wilmer Flores, and that he changed baseball history by crying. And at first I thought it was going to be all, there's no crying in baseball, and, he made the game wussy or some kind of thing like that. But it's actually a really interesting story about a trade and how it got canceled and how it changed baseball. So we might come back. We might read that. I think baseball is interesting. I think baseball history is interesting. But you might not, so I understand that. Here we go. The testing. Antonio French writes, "This is absolutely ridiculous. Only a tiny percentage of Americans have been tested even once. Test, test, test. This is how we find, isolate, and treat the virus. This administration is a complete mess, a disgrace." And this was shocking. And hopefully this will be rolled back. A lot of times things like this happen and people are like, whoops, we set the deadline too fast, stuff like that. The federal government will end funding for coronavirus testing sites on Friday. While some sites will transition to being state-managed, others will close as a result. This is as criticism continues that not enough testing is available. So Hopefully they'll fix that. Hopefully they wrote it for 2 weeks. Remember famously when President Truman agreed to bomb Japan with the nuclear bombs? He'd actually agreed to a 3-pack of bombs when he signed off. I don't even know that he really knew because Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened so quickly. No country had ever surrendered in 3 days before. And we bombed them about 3 days apart, after which they surrendered in less than 24 hours, which had never been done before. And basically the third bomb was heading for Tokyo, if you want to know. They were going to wipe out a major population center under the theory provided by, I think it was McNamara. No, that doesn't sound right. But again, the general who had the theory about Japan, who scared Truman half to death, believed that they would fight to the last man, woman, and child, would fight for the emperor, and that dropping nuclear bombs was necessary to shock the people out of it. Kind of questionable. In hindsight, it looks like they dropped the bombs to scare the Soviet Union. But again, you could read more about that. There's been a lot written about World War II. But we should test things. It's ridiculous. We should test things. Same article, federal government ending the testing sites. That's not good. There's that article we talked about earlier. Fauci urges let's never return to shaking hands. Actually, I'm in favor of this. I was talking about handshaking a while ago on this show or another show, and people are excited when they meet me sometimes, and that's cool. It's really cool. People you haven't met that want to meet you. That's not a normal thing. But yeah, sometimes they get really excited and they crank down on my hand. And, I got pretty good hands or whatever, but I crank down on it all the time. I'm going to get weak. So I wanted to switch to fist bumps anyway. And now I can tell you, fist bumps are out. Handshakes are out. Elbow shaking is stupid. It's just more disease spreading. The future is all namaste. You do a little bow. You got your hands out in front of you together. It's clear I'm not going to touch you. I'm not trying to touch you. Again, there could be a backside. Someone could grab your two hands. Oh, namaste. No, it's not that thing anymore. But I think in general, yeah, we should all just switch to namaste. It's nicer. And you could say, Americanize it. Hello. Greetings. Oh, good morning. I guess we all look Japanese. But, oh well, at least we're not going to touch each other. Which sucks. This was a nice human thing. The whole greeting thing, you haven't seen somebody in a long time, give them a hug and stuff. Which we might still do. We're just going to wear masks. Fuck. Bill Barr, a free society depends upon a vibrant religious life among the people. He kind of missed the boat here. You can hear him talk about it. He talks about religious freedom. That's what we have here. That's what you usually say. You usually say religious freedom leads to a free society, that the ability to choose your religion, the government's not involved. What he's actually saying after he says that is he says that he just gives a very pro-religious statement. Not a normal thing. We have the separation of church and religion here in the United States mostly. And a very pro-religious statement from the acting Attorney General, Bill Barr. He says that the current draconian measures, I'm not sure how draconian they are, should be reevaluated because we should allow people to adapt more than we have and not just tell people to go home and hide under their bed. So you see here he's giving a negative,
adopted or fully justified, and they're not.
He's giving a negative idea here to this staying home. We're actually noble when we're staying home. There is no heroism, right? We all know that World War I killed heroism. If you've read any poems about World War I, you've read about how they all thought they were big heroes and they all thought they were going to change things. And then all their friends came back in body bags and they realized that, yes, the paths of glory lie but to the grave, right? Sic transit gloria, glory fades, right? Rushmore. But yes, adapt more is code for dying. So yeah, you would adapt more. We would find out if you adapted against the disease. This herd immunity idea, this going out idea, this all comes back to this virus severity denial that we have going on. And again, I don't know the actual severity of the virus. I'm going to find out when we get the numbers, right? When we get the numbers, we're going to look at it, we're going to say, wow, that was a big deal, or we're going to say, wow, that wasn't a big deal. Either way, I think that we're just going to start planning for the next virus and for the next breakout. I think the power of these things to knock societies over, which, we've always known about, we've always talked about. Bill Gates warned us, Obama warned us, even W. Bush warned us, of all people. But yes, we've known about this for a long time, but now that we've actually seen one, and maybe it's good that this is a weaker one or whatever, right? All that negative stuff's actually a good thing. This gives us a chance to prepare for the next one. So more from the interview of Bill Barr. He says he's disappointed with partisanship during the pandemic, and the president acted statesmanlike and worked with all the governors while dealing with gotcha questions from the media. Then he accused the media of leading a jihad against hydroxychloroquine. So, yes, this medicine has definitely gotten politicized, and it definitely means different things to different people. So, as far as the statesmanlike, not so sure about that. He was the one kind of volunteering about his Facebook ratings. He was the one volunteering about his hair and his popularity and joking. I think he could have been a lot more statesmanlike. And that doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything to have decorum and class when thousands of people are dying, right? James Carville says, this thing in Wisconsin was one of the most awful things I've seen in my life. It shows you the extent they'll go to hold on to power. It was about one Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin. They'll kill people to stay in power, literally. And he is right. The Supreme Court in Wisconsin refused to extend the absentee ballot deadlines, causing people to go out into the street, risking their lives to vote. It's not what it's supposed to be. Some more pictures for Wisconsin's election. They're not standing far enough apart. Look at this poor poll working lady wearing the rebreather and the mask and the suit. She probably wore this all day. Wisconsin's election was an absolute disaster and downright dangerous. And unless we get national vote by mail, unless we just solve this thing, which again, I've been arguing for vote by mail for 20 years, since the 2000 thing. Hardcore. I looked at the problem back then. I found the solution. It's been unchanged. The only thing I want changed, I want open source tabulators with verifiable hardware. But even then, vote by mail is such a good system. We have paper ballots. We can do a hand check. We can get one of those groups to hand check every single election afterwards. It'll take longer, but it'll be very easy to do with paper ballots. Paper ballots, vote by mail ballots, fuck voting machines. Rural communities in the U.S. that watch the coronavirus unfold in faraway cities are now experiencing the crisis firsthand. More than 2/3 of rural communities have confirmed at least one case, with 1 in 10 reporting at least one death. Let's watch the animation here from the New York Times. If it works, yeah, there it is. You're starting to see it roll out. And again, yeah, the virus doesn't care, that you're from a small town or you don't go out. That's why we needed a 50-state lockdown. It would have been a great way to stop the virus, to slow the virus. And then if we had testing, we could have gone out into individual areas and tested and tracked the location, the source of the virus, and stopped the spread. But we didn't. And it was just days ago where the president was saying, it's starting to flare up in Alabama. Alabama! As if they were immune to viruses. No, it's coming there too. The virus doesn't care. If you live in a city, if you live in the country, it's going to get you. It's going to get to you. Prestigious scientific panel tells the White House the coronavirus won't go away with warmer weather. We've known this for a long time. The virus was continuing to spread in countries in the southern hemisphere where it is already warmer. So we already had tests on this, but the president made that ridiculous statement several times, of course, 6 months ago or whatever, seems like a lifetime ago, where he said, oh, it's going to be all fine in April. As soon as it gets warm, it's going to go away. Nope, the virus continues to spread unless you stay home. If you stay home, there's no way to spread the virus. But if you go outside, even in the hot, you can cough on people. You can have droplets from their mouth enter your mouth, so on and so forth. The virus doesn't care about summertime. I was looking at some of my old photos. Naturally, I'm at home. I'm bored like all you guys. I found some cool photos and even a couple of Periscope videos that I did at the time from the May 2016 Crypto Art Show. Maybe the first of its kind. I did it with Travis and my friend Isabel from the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup. They helped organize it. I was one of the organizers too. I helped, set up drinks and whatever. Not fancy, but I filmed it. I have a lot of photos. I was thinking about slamming those together into a video, doing a couple montages of the art, slapping down some free music, because that's all you can use on the YouTubes. But yeah, let's see what people say. 5 people say they want me to make the video. People don't want me to watch it, edit it live. So 60-40, don't edit it live. So that's just as well. So now I don't have to edit it live, but I'll look into making that video. It's a little more fun, a little more interactive editing than just going up and chopping up the ToneCon. But that is also on my list of things to do, chopping up the 8-hour live stream from ToneCon into some more watchable videos. This was a really interesting article. I saw this happen myself in real time. I still notice we're watching some old hockey games that we had recorded from before the dark times, and all the advertisements are still normal. It's kind of comforting. You're like, yeah, you should go out here. You should come on into the restaurant. Hey, you should check out this casino. Blah, 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 all this outward going stuff. You should travel. You should go to the vacation. Now it's completely changed. Everything's like Red Lobster to go, Subway for pickup. And here's a behind-the-scenes story from the advertisers themselves. People licking their fingers, families enjoying cruises, how the ad industry scrambled to pull now cringeworthy spots and develop new ones. So they really did have to work quickly overnight to change the kind of messages and to cancel a ton of these messages that no longer make any sense. So, good article. Hey, we made it to the top. We survived the news. We're here. We did it. We could read more about baseball. I don't know. I'm not interested. We can't quite read this article from the LA Times. Oh, too bad. And we checked out the beds, the hospital usage. That was interesting website. Talked a lot about hydroxychloroquine, which seems a lot better than I thought it was. But still, it's been hidden in a cloud of politics, right? So there's goods and bads to both sides. I still think that we should use placebo. I don't think that placebo has been given a fair shake in the media. I've seen a lot of media stories that are down on placebo, but I've also seen a lot of tests where placebo outperforms dozens of medicines. I mean, this placebo, might not be tested for this thing, but placebo's been tested for a lot of other things. Someday we'll have satire again. Someday we'll laugh. Right? Well, we would take another phone call if you guys wanted to call in. We're going to check with the chat. Jeremy says, all the Chinese food closed near him. Oh, that's too bad. That would be a good place to go. I definitely heard during the early crisis when people were shopping, trying to get stuff, a lot of people were avoiding Asian food stores, which turned out to be a bonus for people that went there. They had lots of rice. They had lots of sauce. They had lots of food. There's nothing wrong with it. So, all right. I think we're going to head towards the end of the show. Let's see. Questions in the chat. People are asking where Dan is. I don't know. I invited him again this morning. And I don't know. The last 3 days I got like excuses about why he couldn't make it. But today, no excuse at all. So, I don't know. Just doesn't have time to hang out with you guys. He's just too busy, man. He's got a baby and stuff. He's just busy guy. But it'll be fun soon enough when Dan gets back on here. We'll hang out with Dan. Maybe we'll talk more about Tiger King, get your guys' opinion, see what you thought of the show. Still giving you a chance to watch it before we spoil it, although I imagine the rest of society is doing a really good job spoiling it for you too. But it's not really a big surprise, but I do think surprise is part of it. Part of the fun of watching it was at the end of each episode when they reveal a new fact about one of the characters, or maybe not a fact, maybe a questionable fact. But and you're like, whoa, they did that. They're into that. They're into that, and that. So yes, people raising and selling tigers, much more interesting than it should be. So check that out. We've still got 34 watching now. Do you want to watch another video? Do you want me to end the stream? Let me know in the chat. I'm going to try to think of some other videos you might want to watch. Maybe, how about the very first episode of the Bitcoin group? That sounds kind of fun. Let me go find that. Otherwise, we'll see in the chat if they're like, no, or we're turning it off, or if they're like, we'd watch another video, you know? Got 5 minutes. Let's see. Do I have the playlist that goes back to number 1? It's kind of difficult because the Bitcoin group used to be on its own channel. So number 1 might not be in the World Crypto Network, so it might not be in the playlist. So I'd have to follow this link here to old Bitcoin group videos. And we're going way back into the past here. So let's see. This is the old Bitcoin group account. It was just Bitcoin group. It did really well. But then I wanted, other people to have shows too. So I moved the Bitcoin group to the World Crypto Network. And then I tried to recruit a bunch of people to do shows so that we could all share and that everyone's show could benefit, kind of like a group, like a team. And that lasted for a while. And we're still trying that. But here it is, October 18th, 2013, the Bitcoin group, the very first episode. So check that out. I hope you guys like it.
The Bitcoin group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. Issue 1, Walmart and Bitcoin. If your Bitcoin is so great, why can't it be accepted in the real world? Is Bitcoin ready for the rigors of checkout? Customers use their credit cards and enjoy near instantaneous transactions. Why would they wait for Bitcoin when they can soon push their carts full of RFID chips across a scanner, a process that will transform checkout? What is the future of this Bitcoin in brick and mortar retail? I ask you, Andreas Antonopoulos.
I don't think people will use Bitcoin to buy stuff at Walmart, not for a very long time. It's not ready. The infrastructure isn't there. The point of sale systems aren't there. The corporate structures aren't there. The legal systems aren't there. It's going to take a long time until you can pay for your groceries at Walmart with Bitcoin. And even if that time comes, it's probably going to be more like a loyalty card, so you sign up for it in advance, rather than a instantaneous cash-like transaction, which is ad hoc. So, it's going to be a while.
Derek J.
I disagree strongly with Andreas. I think it's just around the corner. In 9 months, there will be a release of a new app for Google Glass called Glass Pay, which allows users, among other things, to go shopping in a regular retail store and scan the UPCs of their items with their eyes or their phone and pay with Bitcoin without even waiting in a line. So their advantages are obvious. People prefer to use the self-checkout. This removes just one more layer of the payment process. So it's only a matter of time, and I think that time is quick.
Davi Barker.
I'm middle of the road here. I think Andreas is right. I think technologically we're not there. I think Derek is right. I think the innovations are right around the corner. It's just a matter of demand. If it becomes something that there is a strong demand for, someone will design the software and the hardware, and it'll happen. And right now there isn't. Right now it seems like Bitcoin mostly lives online, and that's okay.
Andreas, you seem to disagree with Derek there.
Well, I'll just go launch on a tangent. The real question we should be asking ourselves is, does Walmart deserve our money, or should it go down in a ball of flames and smoky fire because every single purchase you make at that pit hole of hell is subsidized by taxpayers to pay for welfare for everybody working there because they don't get a living wage? So, should they get our Bitcoin? Probably not. I'd rather like to disrupt and disintermediate Walmart whole out of existence altogether.
How about we throw out brick and mortars? What if Bitcoin is too cool for brick and mortar stores and they just become completely irrelevant in the new economy?
It seems like that's happening already with Best Buy becoming really more of a warehouse where you go and look at things, then go home and buy them on Amazon.com.
Well,
it's becoming even more prevalent with the discovery of 3D printers as 3D printers move from the commercial market into homes. We're going to see more and more people not even needing to go out to a brick and mortar store. Certainly, they can pay for their designs in bitcoins. They can pay for the machine and the materials in bitcoins. So the end of brick and mortar, I think Davi's right, is just around the corner.
Issue 2, Amazon.com. Amazon.com is the world's largest online retailer with their amazing e-marketplace that literally sells everything, from books to the kitchen sink. But they don't take bitcoins. eBay, the world's largest online auction place, also says no. Why haven't these internet giants bent their knee to your almighty Bitcoin? And when will they? Why haven't they yet? And what's stopping them? I'm looking at you, Derek J.
Well, it's obvious. Okay, so Amazon does accept Bitcoin, and I've used Bitcoin through Amazon to purchase not only the microphone that I'm using now, but the mixer that I'm using, the jacket and shirt that I wear. All of these things I'm able to purchase through Amazon using just another app. Gift is one, but it's not the only one. GYFT is an app that people can use on your standard smartphone, and use that to go from bitcoins on your phone to clothes on your body. And it is possible to use Bitcoin in those major stores. You can even purchase a victimless crime spree at Amazon using Bitcoins.
I want to make the same argument for eBay. I have an eBay account and I sell products on eBay, and eBay doesn't accept Bitcoin, but all of my eBay listings have links to my Bitmate account, and my Bitmate account does take Bitcoin. So if a person is surfing eBay and they see my product and they want to pay with Bitcoin, it's just one button. So, I mean, we're essentially, these guys don't have to play along. We're going to work around whatever their policy is anyway.
Andreas Antonopoulos, is it 3 no's? Is the questioner all wrong?
When you have money that can be routed, that money can be routed around problems. Davi made an excellent point, and it's essentially the fact that you can route Bitcoin that allows you to do that, that it's extremely fungible and frictionless. So let's look at the grand defamation of Bitcoin by Amazon.com and eBay. There are 192 currencies in the world, and Amazon and eBay accept maybe 3 dozen of them. So where are the other 160 outraged currencies clamoring for a defamation suit against Amazon.com and eBay.com? Where are the 130 countries where you can't buy crap from either of those companies because they can't ship it to you? They also can't ship to PO boxes, AFOs, AFPs, and various other 3-letter acronyms. The point is here that this is a first world currency problem. Amazon.com and eBay.com sell exclusively to a very, very narrow part of the North American continent and the North European continent in a handful of currencies. So let's join the other slighted currencies and sue.
Matt,
Bitcoin versus Amazon.
I have to mention that about a year ago, BitcoinStore.com made headlines when it challenged Amazon.com, eBay, and some others to start accepting Bitcoin, and that they would close down. And they said, we will stop taking your millions of dollars from customers from you and shut down tomorrow if you'll start accepting Bitcoin. They haven't raised to that challenge yet, but I think the offer's still on the table, and they should absolutely take advantage of it.
Hey, if we started having success in all of these fields, we wouldn't have a Bitcoin industry. Every single one of the businesses in the Bitcoin industry today is a bridge business, a business that could easily be eclipsed if any one of the really big businesses already in that space just said, hey, Bitcoin, let's do it. Boom, all of the exchanges disappear. Boom, all of the trading houses disappear. All of the banks, all of the wallets. We don't need those things because they don't exist in the real world. We need those things because where they do exist in the real world, A, they suck, and 2, they don't take Bitcoin. So we can simultaneously fix both of those problems in one go. We can make them take Bitcoin, but we can also make services that don't suck in the first place. And those take Bitcoin by default, of course.
Andreas makes an excellent point when he says that they suck. I mean, if you look at eBay, eBay used to be a fantastic sort of free market on the internet and used to be almost like a garage sale. And now it's very sort of, I mean, it feels more like a shopping mall. There's a lot more restrictions on you as a merchant if you want to sell. There's a lot more fees. They operate through PayPal, which has a lot of tax problems. So it seems like these firms, they get big and then they get cumbersome. Even if they started taking Bitcoin, I might still prefer my sort of like niche market, sort of Bitcoin native applications.
You know when I started getting excited about eBay again? When they renamed themselves the Silk Road and ran a really nice frictionless market for a very long time. Unfortunately, that branch of eBay shut down, so now we're stuck with the bad old eBay. I'd like to see more innovation on that end.
Speaking of Silk Road, do you think, I mean, I realize that Silk Road is in an ambiguous place right now, but do you think that Silk Road could legitimately challenge Amazon's claim to being the largest marketplace online?
I think a peer-to-peer marketplace could easily succeed in challenging any centralized marketplace and being the biggest one online if it was allowed to. But it will get regulated out of existence. Here's the thing: if you went on Silk Road when it was still open and you looked at all the products they offered, what surprised me the most was that while drugs were a big part of it, they weren't the only thing on offer there. You could buy a lot of very interesting, legitimate products, from Bitcoin badges to T-shirts to brochures to whatever you might, little tchotchkes here and there. All of these available. Why? Because it was a very large, flexible, and fluid market. So it succeeded as a marketplace first. And I'd like to see some of these legacy businesses be disrupted at their base operational model, not at picking the right currency, but at delivering the right service to customers. Bitcoin should be an after effect.
To the degree that Silk Road was as successful or more successful than Amazon.com, or will be in the future, I think it's clear that the next incarnation of the Silk Road will be even more powerful, even more user-friendly, and will overtake the record set by the first Silk Road. And so it's only a matter of time as this train keeps rolling and markets get more and more frictionless. I like to borrow a term from Andreas.
If I had to guess, between the FBI having struck a permanent and crippling strike against the war on drugs, or simply created the next Silk Road 2 clone with a few weeks and a code bounty, I'd go for the latter.
I think it's more than one. I think there's going to be more than one Silk Road clone. I mean, there's more than one Liberty Dollar clone after Liberty Dollar got shut down. I mean, that's not what happens when they shut down one like free market in demand product. People learn from not the mistakes per se, but they learn from the strategy that the government used to shut them down, and then everybody tries 12 new strategies.
Here's the thing they don't get. Every attack by a government against a distributed peer-to-peer system is like a failed dose of antibiotics. You will kill the weakest organisms and you will allow the strongest to thrive. You will select through evolution the exact clones, whether those are altcoins or peer-to-peer file sharing capabilities or Silk Roads, that can resist your particular strain of statist bio problem. So if you start attacking these services, all you're doing is help them evolve to be attack-proof.
Well, and thinking back to what Andreas was describing with the marketplace they developed and how it was frictionless, what I was thinking about what's lost is the reputation system. That they had a reputation system going on there. If that could have been separated from the Silk Road, been its own generic reputation system, that could have been used for additional Silk Roads down the line and other websites.
Do you think only accepting Bitcoin was a hurdle for Silk Road? Do you think Silk Road would have been a more fluid marketplace if any sort of currency could be exchanged?
I think there are a lot of people who use the Silk Road who would have preferred to trade in precious metals or other sorts of alternative currencies that are not Bitcoin.
I think they'd open themselves up to more attacks if they had expanded into areas that are more easily regulated. You see, the thing with every one of these attacks against Bitcoin businesses, what we see is the complete lack of tools that the government has to carry out these attacks. If they could attack Bitcoin, they'd attack Bitcoin. They can't. All the tools they have are for regulating fiat. So all the attacks they can bring to bear are on the fiat exits and entries into these systems. So if these systems had more fiat, they'd get hit even more.
I say the problem with Bitcoin is dollars. I've said that. If you look at every crash, every attack, every shutdown, it's always been on the fiat side of the transaction where the problem is. It's never on the Bitcoin side of the transaction.
And this is insanity. Because take a real-life metaphor. If we regulated aviation based on the ownership of the land where the airports are sitting, then we'd get their traditional competitors, land-based companies, complaining about this newfangled aviation and controlling it through the airports. Well, with Bitcoin, every time we try to land in another currency, we get hassled at customs. That's the only place they can control. So it's a bit like trying to regulate aviation through airports. And, you know, the best solution to that is never land.
I mean, that's not that far-fetched. I mean, it's pretty interesting to think that those loops start getting closed when you start having, like, every level of the economy has some merchant somewhere who's interested in accepting Bitcoin. I mean, even real estate now. We have realtors taking Bitcoin. Well, that's one step away from farms accepting Bitcoin, and then you have a complete economy. Eventually, you won't ever need to cash out. And then what? Then what does the government do? They have to regulate corn. They have to get you at the point of sale, right?
At that point, they start taking Bitcoin for taxes if they're smart enough.
That might be the end of them.
It was my understanding that the government is already expecting people to pay taxes on revenue earned from the appreciation of the value of their bitcoins.
Are they accepting Bitcoin? What if I don't have any dollars?
No, they want you to change it back to dollars. So you can then blame Mt. Gox for why you haven't paid your taxes for 6 months. I tried. They won't let me withdraw.
Has that ever been done to any other currency? That you're forced to change the currency to pay the taxes?
Yeah. Every currency in the world is based on forcing you to change to it to pay the taxes. That's how national sovereign currencies gain their value through the monopoly on the demand side from government.
So the threat that they see from Bitcoin is wholly new. This new multinational, not even national currency.
Well, it's the native currency of the internet. That's what it is.
Right, and one of the advantages of Bitcoin that I know is familiar to this group is that it can be taken across borders without having to be claimed. Typically, if you're bringing cash along with you, crossing an imaginary line, you know, called a state border, those dollars or yuan or whatever it is, pieces of paper that you're holding, have to be registered, or at least you have to notify the people when you're traveling if it's more than a certain quantity. That's not the case with Bitcoin, and that's going to cause a lot of disruption with reporting if people choose to do that.
The forum says cash and cash-like instruments. It doesn't say memorize sequences of brain wallet keys.
That's right, and since they are bits of information, as you point out, Andreas, it's almost a free speech issue as well, whereas the state, no matter what state it is, has no inherent right to tell people to say or produce any certain writing or materials. So it's a little bit fuzzy with Bitcoin. Is it money or is it speech? Well, depending on what you want to do with it at a certain time, it could be either.
Well, that sounds like passwords. I mean, that sounds like exactly the problem that you have with passwords, where when you're going through a checkpoint or whatever and they want to, like, search your laptop or search your phone, there are various levels of security and warrants that they need to demand your password. And you can be legally obligated to supply your password, supposedly. So,
in some countries,
isn't
not
that
in the U.S.
That seems like it would be a free speech issue the same way. How can you obligate me to give you this alphanumeric code that opens up information on my hardware?
Well, even better, actually, under U.S. law, that falls squarely under the Fifth Amendment right to avoid incriminating yourself through testimony. So revealing your password can be very easily extrapolated to be incriminating information if that leads to all of the transactions that you've ever done. So you can very validly claim a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent.
And I believe that's what's going on with the Ross Albright case right now.
Correct.
They're not sure if he's going to give up his passwords, be forced to give up his passwords, or we don't know.
Well, the federal government of the United States is one that makes no qualms about having tortured people in the past and continuing to torture people today. Wouldn't surprise me if they used torture against an individual to get their money out of them.
Very possible, but at the same time, it's harder to do if you have a public profile or you're in the federal court system, as Ulrich is. Here's what I have to say to the FBI. You keep using the word seized. I don't think the word seized means what you think it means.
That was exactly, I was utterly confused by the Silk Road coverage because it kept saying they seized Bitcoin. And every time I read it, I'm like, what does this mean? I read through like 12 articles and I'm like, what do they mean they seized Bitcoin? Like, did they take his server? Did they take his phone? Did they take his keys? What did they do? And it turns out they actually transferred them somewhere. But that's not what seized means when I read it in the story.
Well, that's not what seized means for the FBI either. The way the FBI seizes money in a bank account is by sending the bank a letter and says, we have seized, and that's it. It's a legal construct, not a technological or practical construct. So when they say we have seized, they mean we have legally declared this money seized, and to take it from us would be illegal. But, you know, in Bitcoin, all that means is that you're one transaction away, which can originate anywhere in the world, for that money to be unseized, which would make for the most embarrassing fiasco for the FBI in decades, which I would welcome.
That's what I was disappointed about, that Albright didn't have a time lock or a poison pill, so that if he didn't check in every couple of days, that his money would be spread out to Greenpeace or Bitcoin.
Well, maybe he does.
Bomb.
We don't know that. The only money that they have claimed to seize is the hot wallet, which contained 2,600 Bitcoin. They haven't seized the 80 million or so, which was his personal funds. That hasn't been moved at all. And so, presumably, that's still out there. I actually managed to get the Guardian newspaper to issue a retraction on one of their articles because they had said that this money cannot be spent now that the FBI controls the keys. And then they also said they had to admit that they don't know if Ulrich has accomplices on the outside, which is the other big gap, right? Anyone else can do it.
It certainly seems like it's a very large operation to be run by one man from his laptop near a coffee shop.
I'm waiting for the day when they tell us he was working for the FBI.
I'm sure those articles are out there if you look for them. But it seems obvious that he should have a contingency plan. You know what I mean? Like, he knew that he was engaged in a quote-unquote illegal operation. Why wouldn't he have laid some groundwork to prepare in the event of being shut down?
Well, he was operating within the U.S. I think that gives us the information we need to know that he wasn't operating with the most paranoid state that he could have been, because surely running an operation like this, the United States is the last place that he would want to be, but that didn't matter to him. So he didn't take every precaution.
I think the fundamental failing of the Silk Road was that they didn't have a button where you could flag other users as narcs. Otherwise, they would have found them by now.
Why wouldn't that be abused? If there was a button you could flag people as narcs, why wouldn't people just flag people they didn't like as narcs?
Because everybody would be flagged, and that goes to my basic point, which is the Silk Road was a honeypot full of narcs at the end of the day.
But now we have this guy who goes into the honeypot full of narcs, runs it, and does it from his home on his laptop. Like, what kind of a mindset does he get to not be paranoid? Like, where could he develop that? I mean, we have
in his early 20s.
There is one explanation that we haven't explored. They got the wrong guy. It wouldn't be the first time.
It seemed likely. The facts of the story seem to indicate that they did get the right person. Have anyone heard anything contrary to that?
The facts of the story were written entirely in press releases by the prosecutors. There have been no independently corroborated facts other than those. So, of course, that does support the prosecutorial story. But we really don't know anything beyond that. They have very sparingly used the word allegedly, which is only reserved for torturers nowadays. But they have prosecuted this person with a lot of claims, but not much evidence.
I'm excited. I think Silk Road is part of why Bitcoin is up, to tell you the truth. When the story broke, Bitcoin tanked, and then it went right back up by the end of the day. That shows resiliency. So now that it's getting all of this press, it's going to be mentioned in every article that the Silk Road is covered in. That means more people will be Googling it, more people will be interested, and they'll see that that this crash was a flash in the pan, and it's a strong currency. So that means that more people are going to be using it, and the price will go up.
You know what they say about publicity? There's no such thing as bad publicity. You can say whatever the hell you want about me. Just make sure you spell my name right. So all of that 2 weeks of coverage, they spelled the name right. Give it 3 months, that'll be a $250 Bitcoin.
Issue 3. In Bitcoin we trust. Hard currency exists because of trust in precious metals. Fiat currencies exist because of trust in economic systems. Virtual currencies exist because of faith in mathematics, in cryptography we trust, or is this just another case of faith, like fiat, but this time with a digital god, rather than a federally reserved one? And what about the miners? You say there's no central bank, but I certainly see a cabal of miners. Davi Barker, your thoughts?
Okay, so why are precious metals predictable? Precious metals are predictable because the laws of physics exist in nature. So why is Bitcoin predictable? Bitcoin is predictable because the laws of mathematics exist in nature. It's not tangible, but it is science. It's a protocol, it's a program that is predictable. And that's fundamentally why gold and silver, like imagine for a moment if gold was valuable because it had an industrial use, but it only worked 50% of the time. And that was like, it was a totally like variable as to whether or not gold was going to do what physics says it should do. It would no longer be valuable as a currency. It's the predictability, not necessarily the tangibility, that makes it valuable.
Interesting. Derek J?
I like the decentralized nature of Bitcoin, the fact that individuals, including myself, are able to look at the code that people are working with, suggest different code, and it's sort of a process of what people think is the right direction to take it. It gives me a lot more faith, putting my trust in coders rather than people who meet in secret rooms. But the creation of Bitcoin and trust in it aside, you mentioned a cabal of miners. When I think some people could argue that there's a group of miners that have more power than others, which is true when you add up all of their mining power. But I have a small mining rig here myself, and so I don't feel like individuals can be completely blocked out from participating in Bitcoin mining. It's something that anyone can participate in, and that fact makes it more secure.
Brief unwanted history lesson. In God We Trust was added in 1954 by an anti-communist crusader following the Joe McCarthyite witch hunts or commie hunts in Congress. Before that, the national motto was a pluribus unum, out of many comes one. In God We Trust was added 22 years after the decline of the gold standard, and we switched our trust from gold to God, dropping an L, and as a result, our currency has devalued accordingly. Backing currency by fictional beings doesn't really help. A pluribus unum is a much better slogan because out of many comes one is the Bitcoin ethos. Bitcoin has emergent value that comes out of the collaboration of thousands of nodes, each offering their computational capability. Bitcoin is backed by the computational capability of the internet, a very tangible silicon-based system that is very effective as a store of value. So I prefer a pluribus unum from In God We Trust.
It's just like the pledge. Adding under God to the pledge was around the same time.
Exactly the same time by exactly the same committee in Congress.
So it's to fight godless communism.
It was to fight godless communism, and before that, our national motto did not have any mention of God, just like all of the other founding government documents.
Speaking of mottos and money, some of the first motto on money in North America said "Mind your business." That's
really
yes.
That was Ben Franklin's mint, and he wrote "Mind your business" on the back of the silver dollar, right?
I like it both on a message like mind your business, and both on a like personal. If you have a business, you should be minding it. That's your job. Right?
That's right.
I think that was the original meaning of the phrase back then.
Yeah, it wasn't so much on the harsh nature of it, like shut your mouth.
It wasn't. No, that's don't tread on me. Different flag.
Like to see that on some currency.
What do you guys think of strength in numbers as the Bitcoin motto? Have you seen that around?
Or as John Gilmore once said, there is strength in numbers, large prime numbers.
I prefer to resurrect the mind your business motto. I think Bitcoin is a mind your business currency. It's one that you can attach an identity to or not. and it's one that you can give to others or not. They can't take it from you in the same way that cash can be taken or digital money in your bank account.
Out of compromise, why don't we go out of many comes one, there's strength in numbers, and mind your own business.
Issue 4, Bitcoin mining. The ASIC revolution is clearly upon us. Since June of this year, having Bitcoin miners in your home has had the same value as space heaters in the summertime. Unless you've got the money for a $14,000 ASIC, is the era of home mining over? I ask you, Andreas Antonopoulos.
No, it's only just beginning. We had to first completely eradicate the era of CPU mining and then destroy the era of GPU mining and then obliterate the era of FPGA mining. Each one of those was a 10x to 1000x increase in performance. But we've hit a wall, and that wall is silicon density and heat capacity, right? So from this point on, the only extra juice you can squeeze out of a system like that involves taking your design to a fab that can put it on a smaller die and put more of it on a die. So you have to go from 28 nanometers to 20 nanometers, et cetera, and keep scaling down. We're not going to see these enormous increases in hashing power in the next generations because we just squeezed out all of the low-hanging fruit in just 6 months. What that means is that now there is an industrial base for Bitcoin, not just consumer and craft space. We actually have an industrial manufacturing base that is now being invested in to the tune of tens of millions of dollars for the production of ASIC fabs that will reach the hands of consumers. And that's a good thing.
Derek J?
It's unlikely, in my view, that anyone in the future will make a significant amount of money home mining. I'd leave that to the pros, but it's becoming more and more affordable and easier to use. For example, I mentioned that I've got a couple of ASIC miners running behind me that are able to generate a couple of bucks in Bitcoin, and it's not substantial. It's not a substantial amount of money. But I think it's worth it for the education and for the fact that it's very low power. It's a very low cost to me, but I appreciate being a part of the network and the fact that I'm able to mine, if not Bitcoin, something that perhaps is more valuable to me. Just switch the use of these things over to a different alternative currency and mine that.
I don't care. I don't mine gold and silver in my house. I don't print Federal Reserve notes in my house. I'm not really interested in mining, and I leave it to the experts. But something that occurs to me is look at what the incentives have done. Like, if you look at the leap in processing power as a result of the incentives created by Bitcoin, that technology can now be used to process other things. You can take these processors and you can make, I have no idea what the computer industry will do with this technology, but you created the incentive for it, and suddenly we see light years leaped forward in processing power, and that's going to now be taken up by video games, by movie production companies, by who knows what they're going to use it for. But that's huge. That's a leap in technology. So I'm happy to see it, and I don't know how it works.
I find it very promising because at the end of the day, this investment is a sunk cost. And it is a sunk cost that is going to weigh like an anchor around the neck of everyone who entered Bitcoin as an early adopter and keep them in the game until we can get the mainstream involved enough. So I love this because all of this sunk cost means no one's exiting the mining business in a hurry anytime soon, and we're less likely to suffer from a dramatic collapse in hashing power that would lead to a infinite block time completion. So I'm very happy about this. This wasted money has been wasted in creating a solid foundation for Bitcoin, and that's a great cause.
Excellent analogy, Andreas. Wasted money, well worth wasting.
I wonder if that's analogous with the gold rush, because if you think about the California gold rush, everybody comes over here to get rich quick in the very beginning, but a few years into it, after the flow of money has sort of dribbled down, people have invested all this money in mining equipment. And that is also a sunken cost. And so they're going to look for other things to mine since they have the capital now. So I'm sort of curious whether or not you could actually look at them like literally analogously with the history of the gold rush.
And even better yet, by the time they're finished with their mining gear, they look around them and guess what? There's a town, there's some roads, there's a railroad coming in, and all of that got paid for by the gold rush. So even while we're doing this, we're also paying for publicity for Bitcoin and marketing for Bitcoin and new exchanges for Bitcoin and all of the other infrastructure. So even when mining fails, the money that's been sunk in all of the auxiliary activities just from the publicity it's generated will still be there. Some will turn into ghost towns, just like California, and some will turn into San Francisco.
Yeah.
I want to mention, while we're still on the topic of Bitcoin mining, how easy it can be to just plug in and unplug some of these miners. The equipment is incredibly easy and so replaceable. We're not talking about scales of difficulty like mining for gold, where cranes are needed and drills. This is something as easy as plugging in a USB and downloading a program and letting it run. And it doesn't get any easier than that. And once your equipment becomes obsolete or outdated, it's easy enough to unplug a USB and plug in the new model. So I think we're going to see these things around for a long time, and I think we're going to see more democratization of mining as more and more people want to get involved at home.
What I would like to see is some kind of a combination Bitcoin mining Wi-Fi station / solar panel, where the panel itself could just take in the sun, transform it into Bitcoin, produce some Wi-Fi, kind of an all three, maybe a lamp too.
Well, merged mining is a really important topic from that perspective. One of the technologies developed over the last couple of years is the ability to do mining simultaneously for a number of different coins. So even if you're not productively mining Bitcoin, you can still productively mine a whole series of other altcoins, such as Namecoin or Devcoin or Primecoin, PPCoin, any other coin. You can actually go and merge mine other coins simultaneously, and that will help promote the health of all of these other altchains. Plus, it gives you an early entry into some of the systems that haven't been heavily mined yet.
I think there's a lot more to be covered on altcoins, but for now we're going to move on to predictions. This is the part of the show where I put you on the edge of your seat and ask you to predict something because you didn't read the setup document earlier. Andreas Antonopoulos, prediction.
Satoshi Nakamoto will be the world's first trillionaire.
Davi Barker, we're running out of time.
I think Bitcoin is going to save the third world.
Derek J.
Bitcoin will alleviate homelessness in the U.S.
Online drug sites will continue to flourish. The FBI may have gotten one, but they'll never get them all. Controlling the internet is like a game of whack-a-mole. The moles keep popping up everywhere, and no matter how many you whack, they just keep coming back. Oops, we're out of time. Until next time, bye-bye. The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk.